the, I guess, 17, 16-year IRR for Bitcoin is about 45% IRR compared to the existing system. Then what I would think about is my economic calculation is that means Bitcoin that's the true rate of return that you should expect. That's the true risk-free rate of return. And why I say risk-free is if you hold it in self-custody, if you hold it with zero counterparty risk, you are outside of the risk of the existing system. It is truly risk-free. If you hold a T-bill, it has risk of the debt collapsing inside the existing system, or risk of massive inflation where it's not worth what you paid for it. These all have counterparty risk. This is truly risk-free. So I would be saying that's my rate of return that I have to beat. And my decision whether I invest more in Bitcoin or invest in my business is, can I beat that rate of return by investing in my business?
Jeff, it's great to have you back on the podcast. How are you doing?
Really good and great to see you, buddy.
Yeah, it's always, so good to have you on. I wanted to start this one because we're going to talk about like Bitcoin and AI and like future-proofing your business is kind of where I'd like to take this conversation.
Right.
But my first question is because I recommend it to so many people, your book, but I've realized that I've noticed over the past like 6 months, I've been recommending it a hell of a lot more because I think people are seeing let's just say like the exponential nature of AI coming in, and we've had hard money like gold and silver rocketing. There's lots of uncertainty. And then just being interested around Bitcoin. So it was 6 years ago that I read your book. And for you, like looking at everything happening in the world at the moment, are we kind of like seeing that play out, what you were writing 6 years ago?
Yeah, completely. Right. So remember what I talked about with exponential progress and the paper folding example I used in the book on why people couldn't understand exponential progress. And AI has been on the exact same trend since the 50s. In fact, all of human intelligence, or intelligence generally in technology, has been on the same trend going even further back. But it's an exponential trend. And in the early folds of an exponential, it doesn't feel exponential. It feels linear. It doesn't feel like it. So people have an expectation for something and it disappoints. And so that drives all sorts of market cycles as people fear and greed drive into there, and then it disappoints. And then, so we've had two major AI winters, right? In the 60s, 70s, and then another one in the 80s on that same thing, right? And for people who haven't listened to read the book, if you fold a piece of paper on itself and keep going, you can only fold it 7 times. But if you could imagine folding it 50 times, the piece of paper would reach from here to the sun. And most people guess that about 2 inches. When I say most people, 99.9999% of people guess 2 inches or something like in that vicinity, unless they've computed what it actually looks like on an exponential pattern. But we don't do that. We fall into traps. That means 99.999% of people will misunderstand exponentials. They're native, a part of our life every day, and they'll do that, what I just described. They'll overestimate in the early folds, in the 60s and 70s, and then again in the 80s, so in the AI winters, and then they'll underestimate by a massive amount later on. And so that's critically important in understanding where we are, because what that means is the AI that you're looking at today is by far the worst it'll be. By far. By an exponential step, by far the worst it'll be. That's what it means. That AI that is by far the worst it'll be today will move into robotics. It'll move into physical tasks too, and it'll merge. And then those machines will be building machines. That's where we're going. You will not stop it. And you will not stop it because you wouldn't want to stop it anyways, but you wouldn't stop it because because as a user of something, as a participant in an economic system, you will always choose the best value. So if a business doesn't give you the best value, they will be killed by the company that does give them the best value. And so what does that mean? It doesn't mean they want to reduce labor. It means they have to do what's most efficient to deliver value to you. If they don't use AI, if they don't drive into this and extend it further and further into the business, they won't be a business anymore because you won't use them anymore. And so that's what I described in my book, right? And you know this, but it's because now we're in this steeper steps, or in the thick, in the deep of that exponential progress. People are just now starting to recognize what I wrote in the book was true then, it is true now, it will be true tomorrow. And all of that is productivity gains, staggering productivity gains that should flow broadly in a free market to humanity, but can't under a construct of a debt-based system. So we can explore whatever you want from that, or go wherever you want from that.
The one thing I want to pick out was AI is the worst it will ever be today. Just thinking about that, like, this is something that I think about a lot, and it's like, I'm amazed at what I can do with our business now that, think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I could never dream of doing. Like, I'm not a coder, and now I can. Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say I can code, but I just put English in, and it spits out code, and I can build stuff that I could only dream of. And I think that's what people really struggle to get their head around is, okay, it's amazing today, but what is possible in the future? And I think, like, the imagination and being able to imagine what that world looks like is a very hard thing for people.
So
Yeah.
that's why I use the paper folding example in my book, and I used it again right then, because if they can't imagine a paper folding and what that means, that type of progress, then they can't imagine this. You have to train your brain to, like, you have to stop, and because it's easy to believe the world right now, and also social media and everything else, will make you believe that there's somebody else to blame. And because you don't want to take accountability, agency, in a world that you've never had to, so there was always all these institutions to protect you that were siphoning out money. but because you lived in that world, this seems so scary. But it's happening anyways, and it's happening at a rate that will not be stopped. So what has it actually done? So I've always been on the visionary spectrum, creator of companies, and created lots of companies, invested in lots of companies. So, but I always, to do that job, I could see where the market was going before, long before people could see it. Now, sometimes I was too early, right? So that's another problem with being on the visionary spectrum. You're too early into where something's going. But that was my skill set, and I always needed different operators and everything else to solve my blind spots, right? As you're building a company. And so I would have to, in technology, in my first company, I'd have to hire product managers and developers to code that vision that I had an idea for into reality. What has this done? It's collapsed all of that. I don't need any of it anymore. My vision can be reality in microseconds. And I'm using this, my AI agent on Twitter. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm using this in all sorts of different ways with zero coding ability that I've never and just what's possible in my mind to be able to create value for other people in all different ways. But that is, now I don't need the teams. Right? It's taken the vision to execution and collapse the entire thing. You could have a one-person team and create, and your job is to create value for other people. So if another person has a 100-person team, that's creating the same value, you can underprice that person by a lot and deliver more value to the market. And so that's what's happening, and it's happening at scale. Now that people, if they're stuck and don't want to learn at that scale, if they don't want to risk moving into the world that is emerging, right, from this, if they want to stay stuck, they are going to, it's going to be bad. It's going, but you don't have to. You have agency. You can learn these tools. Um, Instead of doom scrolling Twitter, take that time and put it into learning these tools, and you will be able to provide value to other people at a crazy rate.
I think that's one of the key points there is taking the time and want to learn these things. And I see it quite a lot with like business owners, because now we work with predominantly business owners. Is they obviously they want to embrace these things and look at okay, how can I improve efficiency, productivity, whatever it is inside my business. But how would you distinguish between, because there's so much in AI at the moment, like in happening in the world of AI, let's just call it. Um, how would you distinguish between just like shiny objects and losing focus rather than, testing out something that
Yeah.
could be really impactful?
So first, try to get somebody that you trust that has been right on this often and can lead you, not and be an honest. If you have zero information, find somebody that can be honest about all of the um, different ways this is emerging, and help you decide where to focus first, and then constantly check in, because that person's skills too might not keep up to probably won't keep up to how fast this is moving. So what's going to happen? It just won't look like these large models. Today it looks like some of these large models, and you can use anti-gravity, and you can use cloud code, and you can essentially create your own engine and add skills to it to do anything. And in creating that engine, the AI creates the engine. Um, so you can either download other skills from open source libraries. Now you also should check. You should spin up a security agent to make sure there's no backdoors in some of these as well. But you can create your own agent and your own engine of a whole bunch of agents that can do literally anything. You can do that through CloudBot. You can do that through anti-gravity. You can do that through a bunch of different instances. And then to be able to productize it, you might need to use Vercel. You might need to use a different database. You might need to use something else, unless you want to go to the expense to run your own database and everything else. So there's different ways to be able to handle that. But where it's going is it won't just look like that, because the micro agents or the sub agents. If you think to how humans do division of labor, this will look the same. It won't be one model. It won't be one model with a bunch of agents in that model, because that'll be expensive. Some of the tasks will be pulled on. They'll be pulled onto Nostr, and they'll be isolated in cryptographically secure keys, right? So that skill can't leak into a different skill. And then there'll be agent swarms that explode from that, and they'll be free. They'll be completely free. And those agents might go to a master agent that is the LLM to learn a new skill or to bring in another agent. But that's where, and all of this will trend towards free. And so your initial go, you might say, oh, I need to spend this money. I need to spend enough tokens. I need to do this. But that will come down. You'll get more and more output, and the price will continue to fall lower and lower.
How I've got so many different avenues I could go down right here. Do you, will this be attached? Because you talk about this in the book as well. Will this then be attached to energy? And
Yeah.
you talk about solar quite a lot in there as well. That tending to free, surely that is attached to our how much we can build out energy. Um,
Yeah. So except for right now, you're potentially making um, an error in the way you're thinking about energy, as most of the market is thinking about an error. And broadly, you're right. Energy prices will come down broadly, and those come down through the free market, uh, through Bitcoin, driving more and more energy at lower costs. So, but a lot of the compute power today to be able to train these models. Now, just think what would happen is if you had to invest billions of dollars um, into compute for energy, and the end buyer wasn't paying for it. What would happen to your investment? Right, it would fail.
yeah.
And so a lot of there's going to be some tough days ahead for some of for some of the companies that in this space that have been fast and loose projecting the AI rise on an exponential curve, but not projecting the price collapse of that AI. Right. So
So yeah.
they're basing their assumption on a previous past that if you were growing that fast, you had the pricing power. But this is different. And so all of these things, this is why this is so hard, and this is why this is so many people have so much, because they're stuck in their old fiat mindset, thinking one thing has changed when that change touches every other thing. That's why Bitcoin is so important in here, because it will tell you over a long time, if you forget the noise of the up and down yearly noise, it'll tell you you're the it's the first global free market that's ever existed.
So that's a good time to bring. It's a good time to bring in Bitcoin into the conversation, um, because well, I want to be conscious here that we're talking about AI and Bitcoin. I'm trying to separate them a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
So I think, and please do, or pull me back on something, because for me, I live this. I've lived this for a long time. You could, if you just follow what I wrote in the book, like nothing's a surprise, right? All of this is perfectly logical. It'll happen, and why it's perfectly logical is most people are measuring these changes through their previous lens, and they're grabbing onto one thing, and they're stuck in a noise machine amplifying the noise, thinking it's somebody else. And so you could see what would, again, I wrote about the us versus them. I wrote why most people would stay stuck. You could see all of it emerge from a very simple thing, a very, very simple thing. The natural state of the free market is deflationary, is deflation, period. We compete to provide more value, and we only win when we provide more value if it was a free market. If it was a manipulated market, you can win without providing value. But in a free market with everyone competing openly, and think of what AI is doing now, you could be anywhere in the world and you can use the same AI to create value. So that is an explosion of abundance where somebody else has to win for you to win. The free market, and it moves faster and faster and faster. But we've never lived in one, so we have no mental model. We've always lived in an extractive zero sum game where those other people were in control, like we were puppets on a string. And most people are still in that system, but they don't know where they're in that system. And so when you when you tell them about Bitcoin, and you say you could get out, they're listening to the rhetoric inside the nonsense system to get their information about Bitcoin.
if I'm just trying, so I'm gonna come back to AI,
Yeah,
and we're gonna move on. Or I want to touch on Bitcoin because it's like I think this is where we should take it, and then I've got quite a few more
okay.
questions around AI stuff. Um, but a good question, I think, is if you were running a business today, scaling fast, dealing with payroll, tax, all the operational pressure of that, just doing that, how would you go about integrating Bitcoin into that business? And bear in mind, it's not a Bitcoin native business.
Yeah.
Um,
Any extra cash flows, if I couldn't, so I would be reducing cost as fast as I could by using tools to reduce cost so that I had more margin. Well, I had more margin before people attacked my margin. The other parts of the free market attacked my margin. I would be doing that, and I would be deploying the excess cash in Bitcoin. And then as I did that and understood that, I would also integrate my business to accept Bitcoin. And I would turn into a Bitcoin native business from doing from what I just described there. Um, and and so why would you? So and these are so logical, right? At least in if you understand Bitcoin, they're so logical. Why would you keep your money in a system that was destroying your money's value? That would be ludicrous, right? It would be. I'm again, if you drop this podcast today, some people are going to say, "Oh, Bitcoin's down in value," but it's because they're looking at from the other system and they don't know this is a protocol. This is an open, decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy. Protocols are winner take all. Protocols come in layers and they develop more and more functionality in layers. You don't need one other coin. There's nothing else. Stable coins are a lie. All of it's a lie. If you hold part of the protocol, then you're owning part of all future productivity of humans as long as it stays decentralized and secure. So I would want to be moving as much as possible. And if I couldn't, if I was thinking about an investment decision in my business, the I guess 17, 16-year IRR for Bitcoin is about 45% IRR compared to the existing system. Then what I would think about is my economic calculation is that means Bitcoin is that's the true rate of return that you should expect. That's the true risk-free rate of return. And why I say risk-free is if you hold it in self-custody, if you hold it with zero counterparty risk, you are outside of the risk of the existing system. It is truly risk-free. If you hold a T-bill, it has risk of the debt collapsing inside the existing system or risk of massive inflation where it's not worth what you paid for it. These all have counterparty risk. This is truly risk-free. So I would be saying that's my rate of return that I have to beat. And my decision whether I invest more in Bitcoin or invest in my business is can I beat that rate of return by investing in my business?
and not many people can say that.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
and it's really hard to. So a good
Really
friend of
hard.
mine, a good friend of mine, my co-founder of Build Direct, and for almost 20 years, um, after uh, after I wrote the book and went deep into Bitcoin, he holds some, he understands it and everything else. But he said to me about 6 months ago, he said, I then went and built this after Build Direct. I went and built this very, very successful company. And then I did that and has employees doing, I won't tell you what industry it's in, but it's doing really well. And he says, and I looked at the economic return of just buying Bitcoin or doing everything I did and all the headaches and everything I was doing, realized if I just didn't do anything, if I just bought Bitcoin, I would have done far better than all of this. And so that's the bar, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
bar, and realize how much I wanted to point on this because I think it's important for your broad audience too. It makes sense to me that your business, Jordan, is exploding in value. when it's tied to businesses, because businesses, any business, any entrepreneur or any business is taking a huge risk against the unknown to create value. And so those people that are entrepreneurs or business owners, they have skin in the game, tons of skin in the game. If they don't create value and somebody else does, they go broke. Their families can't. They have to find something else. So typically, what you find is right at the top of the company, or especially entrepreneurs that have skin in the game, they need to know all of these things. They desperately need to know all of these things because it's critical for their business to be able to survive the massive changes we have upcoming. Now, what about the employee in that business? Right. So there's a whole bunch of fear in those employees, right? What am I going to do next? Where am I going to get a job? Right. And they could either provide tons more value in that business by learning this, tons more, be the change and learn, or, but either way, learn, because then you can actually run a business yourself too. Like, this is an explosion of entrepreneurial activity, and under one, provide value to others. If I have such a hard thing, so really quickly, or you should know really quickly, instead of blaming other people, if your business is not providing value, it will fail. So if you think it's always me, there's nobody else, it's me, to be able to provide value, and you have the bar that high, and anytime it was this market, or it was this, or it was this, you can't stop those things. You can only control you. So if you have a really high bar that it's always you, you'll learn and you'll create value for people, and by creating value for other people, you create a whole bunch of value for yourself.
That is, that's exactly what we're seeing with like the business network, because which I was telling you before we started recording that we switched to be business focused last year. And do you know what the main thing that I really like is just being around entrepreneurs and business owners. That's it. Like, having a network of those people who can get shit done and ask questions,
Yeah.
ask why something is the way it is, go against the status quo. And I think that's why it made it so much easier for us as a business to be like, okay, well, we're going to now help other businesses do this.
Yeah.
And
Well, do you mind if I just use you as an example in kind of what I'm
please.
describing? Because I think it's really important. So, and you have many of the same friends, like deep, crazy friendships out of what's happening in Bitcoin and what this looks like. And then you get other people kind of coming from outside. How do I start? What do I do? What do I do? And they stay stuck asking how do they start. And so I want to. So you called me. How many years ago was it to do the conference?
Uh,
4 years ago,
so
5 years ago.
the conference was about 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, but I didn't know you, right? And you asked if I would speak at this conference that you were putting on, and that led to a whole bunch of work trying to find your value, product market. Now, the conference was fantastic, right? And then that extended, and you were trying to create a consumer business to try to get other people to understand. But because you took accountability, and nobody asked you to do it, you just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for my area. I'm going to create this. I'm going to call a whole bunch of people. You're an entrepreneur, and you created this. It was started our friendship. And then you iterated, probably a whole bunch of things that didn't work, and it was really hard.
So many.
I know, but that's kind of why I'm using you as an example to be
Yeah.
able to show. And then you have this light bulb moment that, wait, it's maybe easier to teach the businesses that are tied into needing to know this than the broad population that is pushing back against this. I'm going to try there, and then through that iteration, now you have this crazy growth engine. that if you provide value to them, that will continue to grow. So I just wanted to illustrate that with you, because I see it. So it's so natural for me to see it with people, but I can't explain. I can't tell somebody what to do, which is their skill set, right? Which optimizes what they're best at and what value they can bring into the world. But it's all open. Anybody can do this tomorrow. Anybody can do this right now. You could stop doom scrolling, move over your time, and find the thing that you want to do in this. And I'm not saying you will immediately make millions of dollars, just like you didn't, right? Your business, you the free market's hard. You have to create value or you fail. Um, but if you hold it that high, you'll find your learning path is the thing that will create the value that eventually you'll provide to people.
Yeah, it's been a long time to find that, like the product market fit. Um, Thank you for using me as an example. That's actually it's really nice to hear, because it's not easy building in Bitcoin. That's a big thing to just highlight.
Yeah, because you have this abstract. It's not an abstract concept. It should be the most logical thing in the world. It should be. It should be. If the free market forces us to create more value than what was there before, then all prices should fall forever. In that, and if you had a protocol bounded by energy that couldn't get co-opted, then it would measure that. It's really simple to see, but because we've never lived in that, we listen to the economists. We listen to what the governments are saying. We listen to all of the centralized media. We listen, and we never ask, what's in it for them to tell us this story, this bedtime story that's completely false? Right? It's just it's a complete lie. And so our life is a lie in that. And what's hard for just 8 billion people, we don't have a mental model.
Mhm.
We don't have the scaffolding in our brains because we've never seen it before to understand something that is really, really simple to understand.
See, I'm just trying to get a picture for, say, someone is running just like a normal business. So, for example, I was up in at a hotel resort. They're part of the business network. Um, Amazing, beautiful place with a spa and everything. So, just running a normal day to day business. If we're to move into that free market that you're talking about,
Yeah.
move from like the inflationary to deflationary and environment, could you just try and picture or articulate what does running a business in that world look like?
I don't think it looks different except for prices are falling. Right. So, and they're competing for the same thing, but prices are falling, but they're already falling if you measure in Bitcoin.
Mhm,
Right. So, this isn't going to happen. It's happening.
mhm,
Right. It's going to accelerate, or not accelerate. It's along that. It'll feel like acceleration. It's the same exponential pattern. But, again, that productivity rate, which should drive prices down at an increasing rate and an exponential pace, has to be captured in decentralized control to drive prices up. And so that's what, and people are measuring from the system that's being manipulated, so they can't see what's happening here. I'm not, and I want to be careful. I just want to, because some people challenge that point. Do I expect Bitcoin in the short term to be manipulated? Do I expect um, that ETFs, stable coins, a whole bunch of people are going to try to capture Bitcoin? Of course I do. We've never lived in a global free market. It's always been a control system. And so you'd have to expect that control system to throw everything at Bitcoin. to try to stop it, to try to centralize it, to try to say, no, your money's not safe there. It's bad for the environment. You're going to get it lost with quantum, all of this nonsense. You should trust me in my ETF product or centralized product, because I'll protect you. Just like, think about banks today. Think about the amazing looking banks that you drive by, the perception of safety when it's literally stealing your money. Right? And so your belief in that other system is what keeps that system intact. Your anger in that other system, believing it's somebody else and not you, is what keeps that system intact. And you can just move. Why I know Bitcoin will stay decentralized and secure, why I know Bitcoin will emerge as a protocol, is when you know people like you, Jordan, right? And the thousands of other people I know that are working on extending this protocol, who are not going back. The world's emerging from those actions, right? Even if people don't know it yet. And any single person, so if you believe in the good in people, that they also can contribute to something that is good for them, then a lot of the people who don't understand this yet will eventually understand it and add their voices. And the incentives align for them to do that, because they'll do better by adding their voices than trying to compete with an honest chain, an honest protocol, through a dishonest one.
That was the big thing. I can't remember where it was, but something that you've said is looking at the world of, like, if you have manipulated money, how that, I'm probably butchering this. I'm sorry. I'll let you say it after.
Yeah.
How that permeates through society and distorts it and manipulates society. But if you have um, that protocol that is
Honest.
truth,
Yeah.
yeah, that stuck with me. So can I just get you to say it, just so we've got it on here as well?
Yeah. Yeah. And I said, so if you think about what money is, right? Money is an abstract concept for our trade, right? Um, and so if your version of money is, it's okay to manipulate that abstract concept of trade, then that manipulation has to exist everywhere from that viewpoint. And worse, and now to just going to hold that thought for people, and now hold the other thought at the same time, that prices should naturally fall in an honest money system, right? Because we have to compete for value for other people. So now that thought and the previous thought about manipulation of money, that means that the manipulation of money has to grow exponentially. And if you're measuring the world from the manipulation of money growing exponentially, then what is truth? Because it's all tainted by that same thing. And I'm not saying that it is all evil people. There's a bunch, right? But what gives them strength is you, because you're operating in that system, and you don't have to anymore. So if you just look at the Epstein files and everything else, and how in your country, Mandelson, and they'll say, okay, now it's over. We got them. If the money's still manipulated, who's the beneficiary now? It'll look exactly the same, because it's not natural. It's not the natural state of free market. It's not your actions, what you do every day, providing value to somebody else. It's somebody corrupting that whole thing. And it's such a big idea that it's so hard that people just keep going back to, it can't be true. Right? It's so big that it means I have to rewrite everything I believed about me, how the world works, everything, the history books I read, the economics books I read, and it's just easier to say, oh, that's a utopian vision, and I'm going to shut it down. But what if it isn't?
Mm-hmm.
What if this protocol doesn't care about utopia or dystopia? What if it's just honest? What if it just, and your moving to it allowed you to win more, right? And you're not moving to it kept you in the noise. What if it wasn't utopian, or because I never, even in my book, so some people say podcasts and everything else, it's just too utopian a vision. My book, in the first page of my book, I talk about I'm not utopian or dystopian. Right? This is just imposing a discipline that is the free market, and the free market that has never existed, a global free market that has never existed. So that would be hard to come to terms with.
This reminds me, I was on someone else's podcast, I want to say a week ago, and it was a group of business owners that weren't necessarily into Bitcoin, and I was talking them through what we do and what I've done, and I actually used your book as an example of. I was like, this is going to sound crazy because I remember this phase of I used to think it was crazy hearing that, thinking, oh, the world can't be that different in the
Yeah,
future. And I remember it so well, and I would just ignored it for a while. And then it was your book that I describe it. I'm sorry, this if it, but it's a mind fuck because it totally flips the way that you think, and that was the point that it totally changed for me.
yeah,
Was actually reading your book and asking myself, what if the world could look like this,
yeah,
and is going this way? And I like to think of it as um, with, I don't know if I've taken this from someone. It might have been Sailor's first book, The Mobile Wave.
yeah,
Not sure, but I like to think like I'm on a surfboard and the waves are coming, and you have a choice at that point, and you're like, do I ride the wave? And I like to think of that of like embracing technology, um, because it's going whether you like it or not. Or do I just stay? Because I always say like standing still now is falling behind. Like you
yeah,
have to be constant. What you said, you have to be constantly going out there and learning what is happening in the world, and what's happening that could influence my business is the big one as well.
yeah. Here's where it's bigger than all other waves. This is why we've never seen a structure like this, at a base structure that was actually that couldn't be compromised. And I want to caveat that it will people will try to compromise it. People have been trying to compromise it for the last 15, 17 years. They will continue to try to compromise it. But but I believe it's going to withstand all attacks and get stronger and stronger. Why do I believe that? Because of you, right? So you're not just surfing a wave. You are part of the fabric that's emerging, that you're encoding you into the protocol. Like there is no protocol without people defending the protocol, without people running nodes, without adding more business to it and explaining this in a way that people can see, okay, wait, it used to only be a store of value, but now I can extend it into through Lightning, Arc, Spark, Liquid. Now I can extend it into a medium of exchange. Now I can extend it, be completely private. And those things matter a lot in a world that's moving more central, that where the government wants to understand everything you're doing, your bank account, and will shut you off and will surveil everything. They matter a lot. And so because you're at the front edge of this, inscribing your time, so am I, you see a different world emerging, and you see all of these people building all of this capability that's required to bring 8 billion people onto something that is in service of 8 billion people. And you're not scared of all at all. You're actually, in fact, your business value is because you're so far ahead of this, and you're helping other businesses understand it. And it's the same for me. Why this is so easy, right? This crazy easy is because It is because you're aligned with the truth. You're building something that's on something that is aligned with the truth, and very few people understand it yet. So that would create an asymmetry of value.
Where where do you think we are? I've just whilst we've been talking about the comparisons between AI and Bitcoin, or talking about them both, because so to frame it, AI has over the past, I would say, like 3 years, let's say, ridiculous amount of people now use it in multiple different uh, areas of wherever they work, their personal. Like it used to be, for me anyway, it used to be, oh, I'll Google that. That's now changed to I'll use
Yeah.
whatever software. And it's like the adoption has been exponential. And like all my friends who I didn't think would kind of adopt it have. Um, with
So
Bit
we are
on you.
so first I'll just answer that and then keep going
Mm-hmm.
and then ask that. We're so crazy early, like
Mm-hmm.
crazy early. The number of people that would be using this in the way that they're building new agents and new things to be able to solve tasks in what I described earlier is a fraction of a fraction of a percent.
Mm,
Most people are watching it on Twitter. Most people, there's probably, maybe it's up to 10% of the population, global population, probably less than that, probably 5%, 6% global population using it on I'm going to query it instead of Google. But
yeah.
that's not a massive change. The massive change comes from the next thing. And so we're so crazy early.
So do you think, just talking about Bitcoin AI, do you think they're just the adoption curve? Do you think they just follow in parallel with each other? How do they
So
both come into the world? Because they're
yeah,
going to be converging quite a lot.
yeah. So I want to be careful here, and I want to put some boundaries on, because a lot of people talk about Bitcoin and AI, and to me, if you just think about AI as a general purpose um, technology like electricity, right? And general, but like electricity that can think. So it's so much staggering, right? But a general purpose means it will be embedded in everything, everywhere, all the time.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. You will have Jarvis, right? You will have your own Iron Man Jarvis, right? And
Which is
soon,
wild to think, because whenever the first movie came out in, I must have been like 2008 maybe,
yeah,
I wanted that.
yeah.
Now I've pretty much got that.
No, and remember how fast that's coming. So that is a productivity driver. Is we use machines instead of digging roads with spoons, right? We do that because it's a productivity driver, and that productivity driver. But this productivity driver is such a staggering productivity driver that we can't even imagine that productivity. Meaning, we are going to shed labor like crazy because they say the AI will work 24/7 and do it way better than any labor. There'll be single person companies providing value, and then other people, the margin that they create by providing value, and you'll use them. The You'll use them because they provide the value. Other people will race in and use the same tools. It'll come down lower and lower in price and be better and better to attack that margin and create more value. And that'll explode everywhere. There'll be so many different ideas that a lot of them will fail, but it'll explode and it'll go faster and faster and faster. It'll merge with machines, all different, not just humanoid robot, which we want to believe it's us, but every type of micro machine to do every type of task, including health, all different things will be powered inside the same thing, and those machines will then build machines. It sounds scary. But if you just put it in a box and say it's productivity, and humans have always reached for more productivity. We've always created more value. So will there still be things that anything stuck in that environment, anything stuck will face the same pressure. Um, Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of entrepreneurs, because the thing stuck is the thing creating margin for the monopoly. And they will be attacked using these same tools all over the place to remove that margin and provide more value. And prices are going to collapse out of this, because you don't need the same labor to do it, right? To provide value. A debt-based system can't allow that collapse. It has to scare you into going into war with somebody else to collapse the currency, create a new winner, to then say, well, let's start the Ponzi scheme again. It cannot allow that collapse. So what Bitcoin is doing is it's an anchor to physics. It's an anchor to reality. It's an anchor to energy that is showing you this. If you price in it, you'll see it clearly. But they're different. They're very different. One is an anchor to energy, right? One is an anchor to physics. It's an anchor to the free market, with the caveat it stays decentralized and secure. With the caveat to that is, how does it do that? By your action within it. You decide, not some faceless government. You decide. The more you put into this, the more you know it's decentralized and secure, because you decide.
What do you say? Because if someone's listening to that, what what do you say to people when they're worried about AI affecting the workforce or affecting their job? Because we're gonna,
So,
and you covered it slightly there, but
yeah. So the fear is what's keeping you paralyzed. The and you don't know anything but the fear, because you're living in the fear. And you're measuring everything by and there's always somebody going to capitalize on your fear. If you look at how social media works, if you look at how you can build viral campaigns, most of them are around fear. Scare people, and look at, I don't want to go down conspiracy theory things here, but if you look at how a government or anything else drives a population, if you say the Patriot Act or something, like, it's nothing to do with it's out of take more power because of fear on a population, right? The and they all look the same. And right now in the UK, where you live, most people are bathing in that fear. They're looking for some other hero within that fear to blame the other person, to say it's your fault that this is looking like that, and nobody's talking about the solution. And so so most of your audience is sitting there all day long, and they don't know. What they will want to tell themselves is, yes, everybody else doesn't get it, but I get it. Right? Um, and what if you don't? What if you are just like everyone else? What if this is inside that manipulated system that you're in all the time, and 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 your thoughts are being influenced by that manipulated system? Then the fear would be too. There's nothing to fear here. There's literally nothing to fear. You have agency. You can move your time. You can move your energy, and you can use crazy sophisticated tools that are getting better and better every day to both to help others in a staggering way that will create value, and you can put them into Bitcoin, which means your money can never be stolen from you again.
it's such a good way of putting it. And I think that's why, like, uh, why I like our business network, because it is people who have flipped that switch,
Yeah.
and they're all living outside of that system.
Yeah.
I think that's why, because you're right, it can be like with media and everything like that, you get in like a doom cycle. And it's not healthy.
So I'm watching some Bitcoiners caught up in this right now. So I was in Costa Rica 2 weeks ago, and watching the explosion of this being used as a currency and circular economies, and like how much power. And nobody talked about price. Everybody's talking about using it. We used it every day. They just, it's exploding. Um, and then you go and you hear Bitcoiners every day about why is it falling in price? It's dead. Um, and they're missing what's happening. So there's literally these your world is emergent from your actions, your belief system. And I understand if you're trapped in the fear and you believe in it, everything else, and somebody says it doesn't have to look like that, you'll push back, right? Because it has to look like that for you. And only you can make that decision to be able to move it. But that's what you're saying, Jordan. I think that's what you're saying. That's what happened to you. That's what happened to many of my friends here. That's what is happening in your business network. They're realizing they don't have to participate in the lie anymore.
And I think as the problem gets more clear, you get more people coming, and it. I mean, of course, when they see the problem, it's like, all right, I need to find a solution.
Right.
And what we use is it's what you said earlier. It was like we look at the problem, or we show businesses who are maybe curious to learn about why you'd look at Bitcoin, but we show them what happens to cash sitting on your balance sheet over the last 5 years. The pound has devalued 22% in that time.
Yeah.
I think it's 23 now since we last updated that chart that we do. We present that. That's it. And we show them if they then put it in an interest account, it's -10. And if just a small allocation to Bitcoin, what that does, I can't remember what the numbers were, but that's all you have to do is show the problem to entrepreneurs, business owners, and then that flick is switched.
Yeah.
And
Same,
they're like,
same thing. Yeah. Same thing that happened to you. Once you
yeah,
understand and your model turns upside down from what it was to what now you want to build into the solution.
exactly. Brilliant. Well, my last question for you is, what would you say to business owners or someone running a business, how to approach going into these next 5 years? Because we're going to see a drastic amount of change when it comes to the money system we use, but also new technologies and where AI could potentially be going.
Yeah. So um, I write in every one of my books that I signed for people, stay curious. And I do that because that's what it's going to take. An open mind, curious, where I could be wrong. What does this look like now? And combine that with agency. It is always you. The world is a reflection of you. Your world is a reflection of you. It's all so if you take agency and that curiosity and learn it this way and then determine, okay, I'm going to carve out time that I was wasting and I'm going to put it into something where I can learn at a rate. You'll seek out people. You'll be a magnet for people that can help you, help you take those steps.
Yeah. So I love that. Stay curious. I've got probably about another 20 questions, but we'll save that for another
We'll do it
time.
next time.
Yeah, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I
Yeah,
really
no problem.
appreciate it. It's always good
Anytime.
catching up.
Awesome seeing you.